There's so many things I was telling myself that no matter what I did, I'd never be enough. I'd never achieve enough. That I needed to always give 100% all the time, or I would never amount to anything. And that's why I want to share my message on how you can break those beliefs, those limiting beliefs that no longer serve you. You're listening to Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. Over the last 5 years, through my burnout experience, podcasting, and coaching, I have learned a lot about burnout recovery as a high achiever. What to do, what not to do, and the common mistakes that many people, like myself, make along the way. This podcast is dedicated to help you break the burnout cycle, optimize your life for peak performance when you need it most, and rediscovering how to truly enjoy living again. That's the key to your growth and success. It ceases to amaze me the limiting beliefs that people have, the narratives that they tell themselves that holds them back from enjoying the work that they do, from enjoying life, from achieving their full potential. And I understand to a certain degree. I mean, I've been there myself. I have been telling myself crazy things. Looking back in hindsight is 2020. There's so many things I was telling myself that no matter what I did, I'd never be enough. I'd never achieve enough. That I needed to always give 100% all the time, or I would never amount to anything. And that's why I want to share my message on how you can break those beliefs, those limiting beliefs that no longer serve you, those niggling negative self narratives that are holding you back from achieving your full potential. So I want to share what I experienced on a call recently. And there was a guy who was working for a multinational. He was in a high priority role, high responsibility, with a 9-figure annual budget. And that level of responsibility completely overwhelmed him. He is now was completely burnt out, had to take an 8-month sabbatical, and is only back on part-time hours in that role. But he felt that it was a given. In the line of work he was in, he said that it's inevitable. My predecessor had burnt out in this role and could not return to the workplace. That's why I was able to succeed him in this role. I knew what was coming. And 12 months later, I burned out too because I could not handle the pressure of such a high responsibility role. But I can't leave this position because it gives me a certain level of importance and authority. It will help to skyrocket my career wherever I want to go next. But I need to hold down this role for at least another 5 years in order to get that level of authority. So I know I'm going to burn out again within the next 2 years. And rather than reframing that perspective, he thought that it was a given, that he needed to maintain this level of responsibility, of working himself to the bone, grinding through every day and being absolutely miserable, because he would be happy when he succeeds or someone succeeds him in 5 years' time, and that he would be in a happier place then, completely burnt out 3 or 4 times a year and on anxiety medication and getting through day by day, going to therapy, going through counseling, so that he can get through the next project, so that he can get the next 9-figure annual budget, so that he can take on the next big challenge. But he knows already now, he is anticipating the next project, fearing going into the next project because of how it left him after the first one. And what I want to share with you is how you can reframe your perspective so that you don't have to feel that, oh, it's the nature of the role. The nature of the role is that it will destroy my health. It will destroy my relationships. It will destroy my happiness, but only for the next 5 years of my life. And that's not the real story. That is the narrative that he was telling himself. That's how he was holding himself back. He felt that, okay, I need to go through the hard way. That's going to completely destroy my life for the next 5 years. That's not a very, like, I mean, if someone was trying to sell a role to me and say, okay, you need to work in this role, but it's going to destroy your life for the next 5 years. I don't know if you have 5 years left in your life. I don't know if you have 10 years left in your life. Do you want to spend half of your life in a job that makes you feel completely miserable, that you have no time for family or for friends or for any enjoyment, but it will help the company get their, again, a dollar to your dime at the end of the day? So we had to take a different perspective. Again, took the leeway model, take a step back, take a deep breath, give yourself some leeway, take a moment for awareness, a moment for compassion, and a moment for self care. What's the real story? What's the real narrative? So, one thing that I cover in my 12-week intensive is high performance leadership is about taking control of the narrative. So, the narrative here was, it's not that, oh, this is the nature of the work. This is what happens. Everyone gets burnt out and they either leave the role or they struggle through the next 5 years in hope of succeeding or being promoted somewhere else in the company. So rather than saying burnout is the nature of the work, it's like, no, burnout is a result of the high responsibility role. If I don't manage my time, if I don't set a clear boundary, if I don't take ownership of this role, then I will end up sacrificing my health. So, what do I prioritize? What's the one thing that's most important right now for me to show up at my best if this is the path I want to choose? So, you take control of the narrative. So, when you join the role, you need to ask yourself, were there unclear boundaries? When you discussed with your manager, with your interviewer about the nature of the role, was it unclear that, oh, you actually won't have any time for yourself? And you agreed, you accepted to say, okay, I can sacrifice my health and well being for the next 5 years. And I don't know if this is going to work out for me or not, but I'll take the chance. Was that something that you discussed? Was that something that you did not communicate? And again, silence is deemed as approval if you don't object. So, were there unclear boundaries? Was there struggle in delegating the work? You have a certain level of responsibility, but you don't know how to delegate to members of your team. Taking on all the work yourself as a leader, as a manager or a supervisor, and not knowing how to delegate the work is a disservice to your team. If you're micromanaging or taking work and responsibilities away from your team rather than trusting them to do the work and evaluating the work if they have challenges, you're doing them a disservice if you don't know how to delegate. Are there systemic issues in the work that you do that were not being addressed? You were working with a 9-figure budget here. You're working with hundreds of millions of dollars. And there could be something in the system that is causing a lot of boundaries or blocks or obstacles in your way. If you're trying to work them out on your own, maybe there's something in the system that is blocking other people too. And that needs to be addressed rather than taking the long route. What's the best way to overcome this? Is this a discussion that you can have with your team, with your superiors? And have there been organizational changes since your predecessor left the company? Maybe this is the way things were 10 years ago. But has there been structural changes within the company that have made this role easier? It's been easier to delegate. Maybe you have more members on your team. Maybe the use of AI can help make your activities easier, more systematic, more easier, make a better workflow. Maybe there are big changes in the company since the last person left. Maybe they recognized, wow, this role completely burnt out the last person. We don't want that happening again because the recruiting, the training, everything involved in the skills and development, learning and development of that person went completely to waste when they left after less than 2 years. We want someone who can take on the challenge, be supported in that challenge, and learn and develop over time. become a key player in this team, in this department, and train others into their role also to be their successor. So maybe this person had completely taken the narrative or their perspective of what they thought their predecessor had and assumed that was the nature of the role. And while that may have seemed exciting and a challenge at first, it completely ruined their health and well-being. Where you can take that narrative, take control of that narrative, and put steps in place so that you can prevent burnout relapse from happening. You can prevent it from getting to a situation where you destroy your relationship with members of the team. So how can you control the narrative? If you're feeling this way, that the nature of your work, you're blaming it on your boss, that, oh, the nature of the work is going to burn me out and it's going to ruin my health and I can't enjoy life because of the nature of the work, it's time to take ownership. Imagine for a second, how would you show up for your role if you were the CEO? You're working in sales. What would you do if you were the CEO of sales? How would you show up for your work? If you're working in logistics, you're working in engineering, you're working in marketing. If you were the CEO of your department, of your role, how would you show up differently? Would you take the back seat and expect everyone else to do the work for you? Would you refuse to delegate work to your team? Say, no, you just sit at your desk and look busy. I'm going to do all the important work over here. Do you think that's going to give you respect among team members? You need to learn how to delegate, communicate effectively with your team, to earn respect, to influence others, and help others to grow. That's how you would operate as a CEO. So, how do you take ownership of the narrative and take control of your role so that you don't burn out? How do you take leadership and become a high performance leader? So, taking control of the narrative, first, you need to audit and redesign your workflow. If things aren't working, if your responsibilities are draining you, you need to map out what your responsibilities are. What's expected of me in this role? What is the priorities that I need to do every day or at the end of every week? These are my responsibilities that I need to carry out. And then identify which of these have low outcome, but they drain so much of my energy. They're the energy vampires of my day. What completely drains the life energy out of me and shows no significant results. Identify those energy drains and see, is that something that I need to do? Or is it something that I can delegate to my team? Not in an effort to drain your team, but an effort to put the low priority tasks to someone else who may have room for those low priority tasks, who can take on those without being over challenged. Once you've identified your responsibilities, you need to map out your day. You need to have focused work periods and also put in break times. You need to implement break times into your day. So, as important as it is to have deep focus and deep work scheduled in your day, you also have to make time for breaks. So, one of the systems that we use is the Pomodoro system, where you have 25 to 50 minutes of deep work and then a 5 or 10-minute break. So, it's like 25, 5-minute break, 25, 5, and after 3 Pomodoros of 25, so that's like 25 plus 5, 30. So after 1 hour and 30 minutes, you take a 15 to 20-minute break. You have a longer break and then go back into the deep work. So that's one structure that we use. Another thing is that you're trying to create a workflow that is not just manageable. It's not like, this is the amount that I can do to get as much work done today and just about get by. You want to make this sustainable. How do you create a workflow that makes every day sustainable, that you can show up at your best? You're taking structured breaks so that you can recover. so that you can do an energy audit of yourself. Make yourself feel grounded, rehydrate, recover, so that you can show up for deep work and be at your utmost attention and focus when it is needed most. Once you've designed your workflow, you need to communicate clearly with your team and with your manager what your boundaries are. You set clear boundaries. You establish your work hours, your workflow, and you stick to that. If you show any like toing and froing and ebbing and flowing between, okay, what's really important, what's not important, if you don't show that you prioritize your workflow and your responsibilities, then people will take advantage and say, oh, well, you don't really respect your workflow, so I can take up some of your time because my time is more important by the looks of it. If you're not fully respecting your boundaries, no one else is going to respect them. You establish your working hours and stick to them. You learn to say no to others. If there's low priority tasks and you don't have the time to take them on, you say no. You don't let those small tasks that other people give to you just creep in. You set a very clear boundary, and you don't have to say an abrupt no, but you can say, I can't handle this right now. You may be better approaching someone else to take on that duty because I need to focus on this, this, and this. Rather than just saying no, an abrupt no, you can communicate more effectively that these are the priorities that you want to finish for today. And if there's time, once these are finished, then you can consider looking at it. Don't make promises that you cannot deliver on. Also, once you've set your boundaries, you document it. You keep a record of the work that you do. You're focusing on a high priority, high responsibility task. You take it seriously. You take the work seriously and document the work that you do so that others can see that this is the work that you need to finish within this time frame. And there's a reason why you're saying no. It's not so that you can scroll through Instagram. It's not so you can doom scroll and procrastinate. It's because you really want to focus on getting this work done. And the other work that you've delegated to your team, you respect that they will respect your boundaries and you will respect theirs. You won't micromanage them. This is where deep work gets done. And this is where the outcomes and the output is seen and noticed by superiors. And if you don't communicate these boundaries and you don't document these boundaries, as I said, they won't be respected, no one will understand them, and no one will take you seriously. So you have your workflow, you communicate your boundaries. Now you need to build a support system within your team. With your manager, you need to do regular check-ins to manage your workload, to say, okay, this is just a quick health check-in with the work that you're doing. Too much pressure, too little pressure, underwhelmed, overwhelmed? Are you bored in your work, or are you completely in a state of overwhelm? Are you getting stressed out and no work is getting done? You need to be at a healthy level of being challenged without being over challenged, and also without being under challenged. Some people think that preventing burnout is about doing less work. But if you're a high achiever and you want to get things done, being in that state of doing the busy work that has no outcome leaves you feeling bored out, understimulated, and you're looking for other busy tasks to keep you busy, and that's mentally and emotionally draining. So you need to build a support system within your work group, be that with other peers, so that you can share a perspective of the work that you do and get their insight. With your team, it could be how you delegate the work, check in on how everyone is doing and how you're getting to your deadlines. Check in with your manager, again, doing the health checks. And also try and identify a mentor in the line of work that you're doing, that you can reach out and say, okay, you've navigated a similar role in your experience, and see if they can give you tips on how to better manage a system or a workflow. So going back over those again, we have auditing and redesigning your workflow, setting a clear boundary, building your support system, and also practicing preventative maintenance. So you don't want to burn out. You want to prioritize your work. You're setting a clear boundary on the work that you want to do, but you also want to make sure that you have a healthy work-life balance. And we've covered this before. Work-life balance isn't about 50% work and 50% personal life. It ebbs and flows depending on the intensity of the work. But you also have to make sure that you have time to recuperate and recover and rest and recharge so that you can show up at your best for work. If you have no outlet of connecting with your community, with relationships, with your health, with your personal growth and development in other areas, then it becomes very difficult to have that level of energy and motivation and spark and drive to get the work done. Now, unless all of your motivation comes from the project and from the work, and you can get that level of satisfaction from the work that you're doing every day, great. But it's when you have the small niggling issues of, oh, there's resentment there because I don't get to spend time with my family. I don't get to spend time playing the music or going out with friends like I used to because of this project. When that resentment starts creeping in, it's not long before they become major problems and setbacks in your life. It encourages self-sabotaging behaviors. There's only one way to overcome that, and that's to stop that resentment from creeping in by developing a work-life balance that works for you. So if you want to take control of that narrative, don't let someone else's perspective of the role or your perspective of how the role, what's expected of you, get the better of you. That's letting someone else take control of the narrative rather than adopting a narrative that works for you, that gets the work done for you. So we cover all of this in the 12-week intensive of the Burnout Recovery Blueprint, because high performance leadership cannot work if you're letting someone else control the narrative for you. If someone else has given you their narrative, then make it an open discussion. If someone tells you, oh, this role only works if you completely sacrifice your health and well-being for the next 5 years, then you're going to be like, well, can the work be done another way? Can we be open to maybe this role is too much for one person? Can we delegate it to a team and not sacrifice someone's health and well-being for this role? If it's so destructive, can our organization work more efficiently? So question things that don't serve you. If there's an existing process that does not serve you, or it sacrifices someone else, it puts someone else at the expense, question it. Is this how our business operates? Is this congruent with the values of our company? That we want to see someone else suffer so that we can maintain a profit? And if that is the case, that we're saying, oh, that's not within our company values, but that's how we get by, is that someone you want to work for if they're not willing to change? You need to put your values first. I mean, if you're not aligned with your values and living with integrity, you're not going to seek or get enjoyment out of your work. You're not going to feel fulfilled if that's in the back of your head. Once you question these, I mean, you can question it and then say, oh, I don't like the way you're working. And if you just leave a blank silence, then nothing's going to change. You need to introduce new ideas so that your values and your integrity can be seen, that if you're not happy with the way things are, don't just complain. Offer a solution. Offer some idea of how this can be improved. And by showing that, by taking that control of that narrative, you show authority, you show influence, you show a way forward for everyone to work forward, to be in line with their values, in line with the company values, in line with the team values, in line with your personal values. And if they all align, you're setting yourself up for a lot of growth and success. And you share those strategies. If you share that value with the team, It helps to cultivate a positive workplace culture. If any of this rings true to you, that you can take this action today, that you can change the narrative around a role that no longer serves you, a role that you feel you're not in control, that you're at risk of burning out because of the nature of the work, and you see that as normal, that, oh, this is something that's not suitable for everyone, they'll just burn out and they'll have to move on to the next role. And yes, you might have to sacrifice your health for a few years for as the nature of this role. Question that. Is that something that the company is promoting? Is that coming up on the job description? Oh, this job is high intensity and you're putting your health at risk for the next 5 years. Is that something you would proudly stand over or advertise for yourself? Take a step back today and think about your current job description. Maybe it's the job description that you have in your working contract, or maybe it's how you describe the job yourself. Look at your duties. Look at your current workload. Is that in line with your job scope? Identify different tasks that you could optimize. What could you optimize in your day-to-day activities so that you wouldn't feel so drained? It's time to have a meeting with a manager or supervisor to see how you could better use your resources or better structure your workflow or your working schedule. If you need help on discussing these strategies, let's have a call. That's what I'm here for. This is what I'm doing on my consultations all the time. People come with these narratives that are holding them back. They feel that they're put in a box, they're stuck in a rut, and that they can't communicate or they cannot share how they really feel about their work because that's putting their career on the line, that they're putting themselves at risk. As I was told, talking about things on the podcast was career suicide, that I can't openly talk about the work that I do or how I feel about the work that I do. No matter how much I care about the work, you don't talk about that openly because nothing is going to change. If we don't talk about these things openly, then no one is going to be open to change because our silence is deemed as approval, acceptance of the way things are. Only by speaking up about the things that no longer serve us is any action going to be taken on how things can work better. That is the future of workplace culture. If you want to have a conversation on how you can improve your role, your career, your health, your relationships, how you can take control of the narrative and change your perspective and redefine your reality, let's have that call. The link is in the show notes. If you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, stuck in a rut, or running in circles all the time, trust me, I've been there too. The pursuit for peak performance, especially as a high achiever, is not about pushing harder all the time. It's about learning to work smarter, find balance, and reignite that spark that got you started in the first place. That's why I developed the Burnout Recovery Blueprint. Join me for 12 weeks to overcome your burnout. Let's break the burnout cycle and restore your vitality. Develop sustainable habits proven for peak performance when you need it most. Rediscover the meaning and purpose in the work that you do. And boost your productivity and impact without sacrificing your health. If you're ready to invest in your personal growth and success, let's break the burnout cycle together. Let's work together. Let's have that call. The link is in the show notes. Until next week, take care.